Got it?
You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin the cleric.
And me, Paul Brophy. Roisin, who do we have on this evening?
Well, Paul, we have Kilkenny Chap Cleere, who is a Fianna Fáil County Councillor with us tonight, and we're going to talk to him about his political career and about his new role as Kilkenny Camogie County Manager, and and talk about women in sport and his political career as a county councillor so far.
Yeah, so Peter Chap Cleere, delighted to have you on, but we'll call you Chap as you said. That's what most people will call you by. I suppose firstly, congratulations on being appointed the new Kilkenny Senior Camogie Manager. You're coming in after Brian Dowland. Brian has had a fair bit of success over the couple of years. He's now gone on to manage the Kildare senior men's team. So big shoes to fill, Chap, but an exciting challenge, I'd say, nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And look, I'm absolutely delighted to be taking up that role. It's something that really interests me. It really excites me. I'm under no illusions in terms of the enormous responsibility and pressure that goes with managing a Kilkenny senior camogie team. But I'm relishing that and I'm looking forward to it. Brian and his previous management team did a fantastic job. I think we won 2 of the last 4 All-Irelands, which was huge. So yeah, absolutely big shoes to fill. And I suppose, look, the plan and the intention is to fill him well over the next couple of months and see how we go on over the next 12 months.
And how do you get a job like that, Chap? It's not a case of, like, I know last season you were managing Carlow Intermediate. It's not a case of you send in your CV and that's it. Is there a bit of a process, or did they come to you? Or
it's a good question. Yeah, good question, Paul. I suppose, look, first of all, for me, my coaching always started in my club, as most coaches and most managers do. And I was involved in my club at underage teams up along, and also was coach and selector with our men's adult team for a while. And then I suppose an opportunity came a couple of years ago to get involved with the Clara Senior Camogie team as a coach. And yeah, I took on that challenge. It was the first team, I suppose, outside of my own club that I ever got involved in. And I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I had 2 great years with the Clara girls, loved every minute of it. And I suppose, look, when you're involved with teams, then your name gets out there, and an opportunity. Then I got approached by Carlow last year to ask them would I get involved in coaching and managing, and I did. And look, it's the natural progression then, I suppose, was when Brian left. From a Kilkenny perspective, when that opportunity arose, it was something that I just jumped at the opportunity straight away.
And you've been appointed on a 1-year term, and you're currently in the process of putting your background team in place. I suppose that's going to be very important.
Absolutely, Paul. Yeah. Look, the most important thing is that you get the right character. Like, obviously, the characters is the most important thing, and get people with the right characteristics and the right character. So that process is almost complete now, Paul. We're nearly there on that side of things. Obviously, the Kilkenny Club Championship in Camogie is a semi-final stage this weekend with the intermediate and seniors. I know the juniors a little bit further back, but that's progressing nicely and will all be complete in the next couple of weeks. So I suppose once the backroom team is complete, and once we sit down with or try and arrange and put in place a panel for ourselves for next year, the hard work will really start then. But yes, it's just really exciting, and it's something that we're looking forward to getting stuck into.
And would you have already had conversations with your counterpart Sean Kelly, who's over the intermediate camogie team? Because there's probably players who were playing intermediate last year that might be good enough to make the step up, or
absolutely. And to be fair to Seamus, and Seamus has been reappointed again next year, which is great. I have spoken with Seamus a couple of times. I'm actually meeting him again this weekend. So there has to be great synergy between the intermediate and senior panels. And also, in fairness to Brian, as previous manager, Brian has been he's went out of his way, I suppose, to be helpful to me in terms of information and advice, which has been really, really helpful to me as well. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. Like it's there's huge works going behind the scenes before you even get back together as a squad. You know,
absolutely.
That's the easy part. When you're back together as a squad, you're in the hurling pitch. That's when you love it, because that's when you're doing what you love. But it's all the other work has to be done prior to getting to that stage.
exactly. And the last couple of years, Kilkenny under Angela Downey, they got to a couple of finals. Unfortunately, didn't get over the line. Had good success under Brian Dowland. So there is a good core as well. You have your experienced players, but you also have your young players coming through. So there's a good base there to work from.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the Kilkenny seniors were beaten in a quarter-final last year by Cork, only by a point or two. Cork went on to win the All-Ireland, and the intermediates under Seamus Kelly, were beaten in a league final, beaten in All-Ireland semi-final, won a Leinster final. So they were incredibly competitive last year as well. And obviously Kilkenny Minors last year were beaten in the semi-final, and the year before won the All-Ireland. So there is a nice conveyor belt of talent coming through. And I suppose it's like anything, it's trying to get a group of players together and a panel together and gelling them and trying to create a spirit and I suppose try and be very, very competitive from minute one. I mean, last year, to be fair to 2023, to be fair to Kilkenny, they were just back from the holiday and they probably hadn't got as much pre-season done as other counties, and they just never really got going to the heights that they had the previous year. So, and that happens. That's sport. That happens regularly. So we just need to make sure we hit the ground running early doors. And
you said, Chap, you coached in your own club, coached the men's team, and you coached with Clara and Carlo in intermediate. Is there a difference between managing a group of fellas versus a group of women? I know there's some there are differences, but what would be kind of some that you would have seen?
Yeah, I suppose. Look, I have trained. I suppose my adult men's team and been involved in my adult men's team, but actually most of my coaching has been with girls because obviously I have 4 daughters. Yeah. So the first team I was involved in, I think, was the under 6 blacks and whites camogie team, and we worked our way through from there. So look, at the end of the day, from my perspective, be the camogie players or hurling players, they're all on the same page in the sense that, especially when you're from Kilkenny, they're all incredibly competitive and they all want to achieve and they all want to get the best out of themselves. So I don't see any major difference really. Obviously, physically there are differences, but in terms of attitude and in terms of will and desire and passion and love for the game, there are none in my opinion.
Yeah, very competitive. Especially Kilkenny.
I talked to someone. He coached soccer. He coached men, and then he coached girls, ladies. And the biggest difference he's found is that girls and ladies were more willing to listen, which I thought was good and interesting. A point that he made there on that one. So.
Yeah, no, look, as I said to you, it's when you get a group of competitive women who want to achieve together, they can achieve great things. And I've seen that in the past, and I'm looking forward to hopefully experiencing that next year.
Can I ask a very politically incorrect question, but a politically correct question as well? You're probably expecting me to say this. And as a woman, there's a lot of controversy at the moment about men playing in women's sports and men going into women's changing rooms with the men identifying as women and the transgender ideology issue. What is Kilkenny's GAA? What is the GAA's policy and procedures on that? And what way will you approach it?
I'm actually not sure, to be totally honest with you, Roisin. It's not something that I've ever come across, I suppose, as a coach to date. And it's probably something I would need to familiarise myself with a little bit more. But it's not something that I've come across yet. So I couldn't really give you, because it hasn't happened to me, I can't say what I would do because I actually don't know. I'd obviously have to seek advice and guidance from the GA in terms of their policies and procedures. But look, as I said to you, be it male or female, in terms of that competitiveness and that desire and that will to win and that passion to win, especially when you're from Kilkenny, that's there in abundance and it's never lacking in any team I've ever been involved with anyway.
Yeah, I don't think I want my daughter playing in a team with a young man full of tetestosterone, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is causing a lot of hassle and questions and concern.
It definitely is, and I suppose I haven't come across it in a GA field yet, but obviously from an international sports perspective, you see it in athletics especially, and you see it in swimming and cycling. It's various different sports, and it's a very sensitive issue, really, and it's a very emotive one for a lot of people. But look, as I said to you, that's not my area of expertise, so I'd be I don't want to say one thing or another thing because I actually don't know, and I think the honest thing is to say I actually don't know what should happen in those instances, really, you know. But
like
if
a
and when I come
father
across
of
it,
4 girls, what would your opinion be, and your wife's of a father of 4 girls, of a young a man wanting to compete in the camogie?
well, if a man wanted to compete in camogie, you know, just if he wouldn't be allowed straight away, you know what I mean? Like, obviously there's processes and the transitioning periods and all that sort of stuff. So as I said, it's not something I've come across before, Roisin, and I'm not avoiding the question.
I know.
I actually just don't have an answer for you because I haven't experienced it, and it'd be very easy for me to say one thing or another, but I actually don't know because I haven't experienced it. I've never come across it. So
we spoke to Danielle Loughery up in Buncrana a couple of weeks ago about the policy and procedures that they had in as well. So moving on then, so your political career, Chap Cleere, I heard about you back in 1916, I was going to say, in 2016. In 2016, and I was hearing good things, but we've never actually met. So can you tell us then about how your political career began?
Yeah, well, I suppose, look, Roisin, I never had any interest in politics growing up or anything like that. It was never something that was on my radar or on my agenda. And I suppose how I got involved really was in 2010, my second daughter, Emily, she was born premature. She was 7 weeks premature, I think. And at that time, she was in hospital for 26 days. And you know, she'd take a step forward, 2 steps back. So she's fine now, and everything is great, thank God. There's no issue, no bother with her at all. But obviously, at that time, it's quite a worrying time when you have, you know, an 18-month-old at home, and you have a newborn baby that's in a special baby care unit. So she was in hospital for 26 days before we could bring her home. So when we brought her home, I said, look, I want to do something for charity here to raise awareness for Irish premature babies. I didn't know what to do. And so I said, look, would I do a skydive? Would I do this or that? And then I came across a marathon. And obviously just 26 miles in a marathon. She was in hospital for 26 days. So it was a natural fit. I said, look, I'll do a mile for every day she was in hospital, so I'll run a marathon. Now, this is 2010. And you might recall, or your viewers might recall, that the country was in a very difficult position in 2010 economically. And politically, Fianna Fáil, the party I'm aligned to, were in a very bad place in the polls and weren't going particularly well. And around the time I was training for the marathon, so my daughter was born in November. October. Sorry, I started training in November for the marathon, and there was a general election in February of 2011.
That's right.
And as I was running the roads, training for this marathon and getting the miles in the clock, I was driving by all these telephone poles with posters up. And I see all the various different posters from the different candidates from the different parties, and just subconsciously that was the trigger in my head. I said, you know what, if I really want to make a difference, if I really want to do something, or you know, do something powerful for my family and to make change for my community, then there's no point in talking about it. I actually have to go and do something. So subconsciously in my head in 2011, that's when the penny dropped. Obviously I didn't do anything about it, but I knew at that stage that, you know what, I have I'm very community driven, and I have a civic, I feel a civic responsibility amongst myself. So that's how the politics got going. And then obviously a couple of years later, there was the local elections, and I managed to get nominated by Fianna Fáil. And so be it, that, you know, got elected and haven't looked back since.
And Chap, that was an absolutely nuts constituency, that Kilkenny East. It started out in like the Rock Bar, and it kind of ended in down in around Inisteg, and you take it to Ballyhale, and you're into Thomastown. It was absolutely massive. Electoral area. And then you used to both Kilkenny East and Kilkenny West, you used to meet kind of together, and you'd vote to elect a mayor and things like that. But like, that was a crazy setup.
It was absolutely crazy. I mean, you have a situation, and it's all going back to the Local Government Reform Act there, and how the Kilkenny City was split. And you'd be very familiar with that, Paul, in your background. But Kilkenny City East and Kilkenny City West. My constituency in 2014 was practically half of Kilkenny City, going the whole way out to Graignamanagh, and the whole way down to Ballyhale and Innisteague, and then out to Dunmore. It was an absolutely massive geographical area. And then Kilkenny City West was obviously the other side of Kilkenny City, the whole way out to Callan and that direction. So it formed one monster, I suppose, municipal district with 12 councillors in it. And I suppose, look, being selfish about it for myself, whilst it was quite awkward of a municipal district, it did allow me as a country person to be elected mayor of Kilkenny City, which I would not have been able to do now or ever again into the future, the way the boundaries are looking. So I suppose bizarrely it worked out very well for me selfishly, because I got huge privilege and honour of being mayor of Kilkenny because of the areas. And obviously my new constituent now is Callan Thomastown, which is actually bigger. It actually runs from Graignamanagh on my side the whole way over to Winegap and everything in between south of the city. It's a huge geographical area, huge distance to cover. So yeah, and that's going to be the area again for the next election. So yeah, look, it's these electoral reforms, and when boundaries change, you've no real control over it as a politician. You're at the mercy of what these reforms do and what local government do, and you just have to go with it and hope for the best.
Yeah, amazing what can be done with a stroke.
And like there's very little consultation of these things either, Paul. You've somebody up in Dublin who's looking at a map and he's trying to, he's basing it all on mathematics. He sees, right, we need 5,000 people in this constituency. So look, we'll draw a line this way. And for example, we'll move Tullaroan and Freshford and all those areas into North Tipperary. With the flick of a pen. So I think it's frustrating that way, that there is no consultation. It's just decided at a boardroom level that's completely independent of any political party or anything. But it's very frustrating.
And we had Mary Hilda Kavanagh on last week, who lives in that area, which is now part of North Tipperary. Which is, I presume, Chap, you've been talking to a few people about that. They must feel very, very disenfranchised. Yeah, they're disenfranchised, they're disillusioned, and they're disappointed. But mostly they're very, very frustrated. They're very frustrated that, number one, they have a connection to Kilkenny, obviously, because they're from Kilkenny. And they're very, very proud. And the calls that I've been getting from people is, first and foremost, hugely frustrated. And then secondly, that leads into disillusionment. So much so that a lot of them are telling me that they're not even going to bother voting because they don't think they're going to have representation there. And I suppose, look, when you hear the areas called North Tipperary, there's no mention of North Kilkenny or Kilkenny West or any of that. It's just North Tipperary. So they're, even in the name, they're completely disenfranchised. So there's a lot of frustration and a lot of anger up there. Mary Hilda was saying that even if they included, if you call it North Tipperary, Kilkenny Northwest, at least perfect. Well, you'd have some connection to it. At least you might break 30% turnout with absolutely with a name like that. And the other problem then, I suppose, from a Kilkenny perspective, is just based on the mathematics, because it's a 3-seater and because I think there's something like 8,000 voters moving over. There's mathematically not the numbers to elect a Kilkenny candidate. No, unfortunately, no. Yeah, so like you would need a huge number of people from Tipperary to vote for Kilkenny to have a TD in that particular area, and that's, given our cultural GAA backgrounds and all that, that's probably a little bit unlikely. So it's if it was a bigger chunk of area went over, it'll be easier to swallow in a sense, because you'd have a bigger slice of the pie, for want of a phrase, but it's quite a small portion, which makes it very difficult. And kind of just going back to GAA for a second, Chap. We all know we have the GAA, we have the Camogie Association, we have the Ladies Football Association. They're 3 separate entities. Now, Mary McAleese, the former president, she's working on a piece to say, how can we kind of bring these 3 organisations together under the one umbrella? Now, we see a lot of clubs, they're now GAA and Camogie clubs, so it's already starting at a club level. What are your thoughts on that fact now you're in the Camogie scene? Yeah, I've always been a huge supporter of that, Paul. I think it's something that has to happen, that needs to happen. Now, obviously, there's a consultation phase, and I think it's been the biggest ever consultation in terms of feedback given back ever in the history of the state, in terms of the merging of the GAA and the Camogie and the LGFA. For me personally, I'd love to see it happen. I think it's going to happen. There's a bit of work needs to be done, obviously, to get us to that stage, and that'll all be done over the next
probably a couple of years really, Paul, but I think it's a brilliant space that we're going in. That our GA games now, irrespective of whether you're male or female, that we're all under the one umbrella, because at the end of the day, my club is blacks and whites, Paul, and if there's a camogie match, I'm going down to. But if there's a boys match under 13, the Shield final next week, I'll be going into that as well. So whether they're boys or girls, your club is your club, and most people are the same. So I think the sooner it happens, the better. But I am conscious that there is a lot of work. It's not a straightforward version.
And for our listeners and our viewers, Chap, who wouldn't be familiar with what the practical challenges that are there with a merger that size, what would they be?
Well, I suppose, look, at the moment, Kilkenny's a little bit different because there aren't a massive amount of LGFA clubs. You really just have hurling and camogie. But if a GA club isn't merged at the moment with a camogie club, like it's the GA club, for example, owns the grounds. It's the GA club owns the dressing rooms. And when the camogie are looking to have matches, they need to get permission from the GA club. Now, we're very fortunate, Kilkenny. It works really, really well. But I suppose by merging it together, for example, one advantage would be that there would be, I suppose, equal time given to both male and female in terms of that particular structure. Yeah. At the moment, in each club, you'd have a camogie board and you'd have a hurling board. Yeah. Those boards would merge together, so everything would be for the benefit of the club. So there's a lot of synergies that are there automatically, and it's just a matter of merging them in together. But it is something that will take time to, I suppose, legally and to, I suppose, structurally get completely sorted. As I said, Kilkenny would be quite easy because we have very few LGFA clubs, and we're primarily just hurling a camogie, and it's pretty much working seamlessly anyway in Kilkenny, to be fair. There's a few challenges, but it's not bad compared to other counties. But I can see where it could be a very difficult process in places like, if you're in Cork, for example, and you have a hurling club, a camogie club, a football club, and a ladies' football club, all in the same GA pit with the one pitch. Just huge demand and pressures for use of that one space, or whatever. So there's that whole piece to be worked through as well.
Yeah, and I suppose with your county councillor hat on as well, I suppose the need for facilities, for all sports of all codes is going to increase with the increasing populations and stuff like that. So I suppose it's very important now that Kilkenny County Council kind of works with different clubs and organisations to secure those type of facilities. Absolutely,
Paul. And the thing about sport is, I mean, I'm obviously hugely into GA and camogie, and that's me. But not everybody is in. Some people are into soccer, some people are into various different other sports, cricket, whatever the case may be. And I suppose my whole philosophy is I want to see young people in particular, and in particular younger, playing sport. And whatever sport that is, it doesn't matter. But the opportunity has to be there that if there's a young girl in Kilkenny City who wants to play rugby, that option has to be there for her. If there's a young girl that wants to play snooker, whatever it is, that the facilities and the infrastructure is there to allow these young boys and girls and the young people to go and play them and explore and experiment in different sports. Because, look, you could play 5 sports, and it could be the 6th sport that you try that you actually have a natural talent for or grow for. So I just be encouraging all young people to take up sports, and the county council that would have a big role to play in that in terms of helping these groups with the infrastructure and facilities, because funding can be difficult, especially for the minority sports and the smaller sports. So the local authority really needs to help on those in terms of identifying sites and helping financially in terms of some of the different grants we have out there as well.
Absolutely, and Kilkenny County Council has agreed to purchase a very big site in Kilkenny City, the St. Patrick's. It was your own party was fairly split on it at the time, but you're obviously of the opinion it's a good deal for the people of Kilkenny.
Oh, it's an absolutely brilliant deal.
It appears it's going to be relatively cost neutral as well.
Yeah, it's a brilliant deal for Kilkenny. And just to give you a brief, quick synopsis of it, it's the old St. Patrick's centre site on the Kells Road. There's a 17-acre site up there. It's going to cost potentially in around between 3 and 3.5 million euro. Kilkenny County Council will fully be reimbursed for that money over the next 5 years. There will be an investment required to bring that property up to scratch, a 9 million euro investment, which is coming in to I suppose, adapt and update the infrastructure that's there at the moment. And in 5 years' time, the building will be completely owned by Kilkenny County Council. There'll be a huge public consultation piece done with the people of Kilkenny to decide what is the best use for that piece of land. It's a city, 17 acres, city centre. You've got a housing need. There's obviously sports. There's loads of different things that can be done up there, but that has to be done as a pure consultation piece. But the deal that was in front of us as councillors was, do we think this is a good idea to basically purchase 17 acres for zero, or do we not? And obviously, you know, I work in finance. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. So I'm 100% for it, and I'm delighted it got through. And hopefully, we can get that asset into Kilkenny County Council so that people in Kilkenny can benefit from that land for years to come.
Am I right? Am I right in saying as well, Chap, there's also farmland at the back that is also part of the deal, so it's potentially going to be more than 17 acres.
Yeah, initially it's 17 acres, but obviously there is other adjoining lands to it, and obviously depending on the commercial operations that are there, there is scope, we'll say, for further development at the back of that part. So look, this is massive for Kilkenny. When Kilkenny bought the old brewery site 10 or 15 years ago, you know, it was a big investment, and I know people are wondering, geez, is it the right thing to do or is it not? And as it turns out, in my opinion, and it was nothing to do with me, but it was absolutely the right decision. And it's been transformation, will be transformation for Kilkenny City. I believe that in the last 10 years, this is the biggest piece of infrastructure that's going to benefit Kilkenny enormously over the next number of years. And the options to go up there, Paul, are massive. Everything from sports to educational complexes to parks. The list is endless, but it has to be done with the consultation. That's the key thing here. Is Kilkenny will acquire the asset. The asset will be cost neutral. It'll get a €9 million facelift, and the people of Kilkenny, through the public consultation, will decide what's to be put up there when all is done and dusted in a few years' time.
Yeah. Exactly, because it's going to be a big busy spot there, because you'll have that campus, you'll have James Stephens GA pitch out there, and you have Evergreen out there. So that's a busy road. So the first thing that springs to my mind is the road needs to be widened.
1,000,000%. And not only does it need to be widened, footpaths need to be brought out there, there's a huge amount of infrastructural work that will need to be done as well in conjunction with all this. So it's not just a case of, you know, you buy the 17 acres and that's it. That has to be backed up with infrastructural investment as well. You couldn't agree with you more. That's a narrow road. It's a windy road. So we have to make sure that that road is made safe, because obviously if you have an asset like that, and for example, if you decided to put 100 houses up there, for example, you'd have to make sure the infrastructure is there to make it safe for those people to get into the city, we'll say, for example. So that all has to be done as part of the deal, but it'll have to happen, because you couldn't just leave it as it is without putting the infrastructure in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure they've already started the scoping exercises.
Yeah, and you see,
planning for that.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because I suppose, look, the first thing we have to do is actually acquire the site. So the approval was sought, should Kilkenny County Council acquire the site. That's been sought and that's been approved. And now I suppose you can't really go into a lot of the consultation until you've actually got the nod to go ahead and purchase the site, because it's, ifs, buts and maybes. But once that's formally agreed, then all that part will start in terms of the traffic calming and the safety measures and all of that infrastructural engineering works that will need to be done to make that area safer. And they'll have to be done, and it will be done. And it'll be, it will make a huge difference to that area, because right now, if you go out there and it's probably one of the most dangerous roads in Kilkenny in terms of the speed people go and the windiness of it and the narrowness of it. It's a dangerous road.
Absolutely, 100%.
Chap Cleere, you sound very passionate and very community spirited, and the community sounds like it's very important to you. I'm sort of curious, you entered politics and, you never thought about politics before. Was there anyone within your Fianna Gael group, Fianna Fáil group, apologies, within your Fianna Fáil group?
We have to edit that out.
I know, it's as bad as Kilkenny and Tipperary, isn't it? So anybody within your Fianna Fáil group that mentored you or supported you, and likewise anyone in particular in the Kilkenny County Council?
Yeah, well, I suppose, look, Fianna Fáil to me would be like any community or any GA club, in the sense that it is a big family. And there's some fantastic councillors out there at Kilkenny, and the likes of Mick McCarthy up in Freshford, and Matt Doran, and Ger Frisbee. There's some really, really good councillors out there, not just Fianna Fáil, but across the board. But I suppose when you get involved with a political party, everybody there is there to look out for you, to help you, and to try and develop you as a person, whatever, and as a counsellor, and give you tips and hints. And I couldn't be more grateful for all the support I've got from every single person that I've ever met that has helped me on the Fianna Fáil side of things. They've been they're, as I said to you, they're my political family. So I have my personal family, which is my wife, my kids. I have my community family. I have my GA family, which is my club, and now Kilkenny Camogie. And then my political family is Fianna Fáil. And like anything with your family, you will fight, and you will have disagreements, and you have arguments, and that happens, and it does happen. But at the end of the day, you're man enough to roll your sleeves up and say, you know what, we disagree on that, but I do respect you as a person. You move on and you make your points in a fair way, and we agree to disagree on occasions, and that's okay too.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Bobby Aylward.
Oh, Bobby, good too.
I was doing my dissertation, and it was a comparative analysis of male and female media experiences here in Ireland, and Bobby was one of my subjects, and he was such a gentleman. And his PA made the nicest cup of tea up in Leinster House, and he even charged my phone for me because he was such a gentleman. And I would imagine he's very sorely missed within Fianna Fáil party, but also locally here in Kilkenny.
Yeah, and I mean, when you mentioned Bobby, Bobby first and foremost was a community man. He was a passionate GA man for Ballyhale Shamrocks. He was a proud Kilkenny man. And every time he was elected for Kilkenny, he represented the people of Kilkenny to the absolute utmost and to the best of his ability. And he's a huge loss, not just politically, but to his family and to his community as well. He's an absolute massive loss. And I suppose it's quite sad, I suppose, if you think that somebody has given so much of their life to the public. And then, once you finish up that you get so little time. So look, Bobby is sorely missed, and has been sorely missed, and will continue to be sorely missed for many, many years. He's a huge ambassador for Fianna Fáil, but a huge community man, and all the things you mentioned there, as I said, community, GA, family, Fianna Fáil. Bobby was passionate about all those things and gave it every single ounce of what he had. And he was a big man. And he was a big man. He was a big personality, and he had a big heart. And we miss him. We miss him dearly. And look, he is a great family there, and the Aylward name is synonymous with politics in Kilkenny. And they've given so much service as a family to this county, and have helped so many people. And that's what it's all about: helping people and doing your best for people when they come looking for your support.
And Chap, you were first elected to Kilkenny County Council in 2014, and you're going to run again next year. And if you are successfully re-elected, please God, that'll be 10 years on a county council. That's fairly, it's a long period of time. It's a good apprenticeship if you wanted to run for the Dáil. Do you have aspirations of maybe running for the Dáil or Shannon someday?
Yeah, to look into something that's always there in the back of your mind, and I think it'd be very you'd be very naive to just dismiss something like that out the window, because you never know what's going to happen. If you asked me 15 years ago, would I be involved in politics, I'd say you're absolutely raving mad. And if you asked me 5 years ago, would I be training the Kilkenny Camogie team, I'd say you're absolutely raving mad. So you just don't know what's going to happen in life, whatever. And I'm a firm believer you just take each day as it comes, and each week as it comes, and each year as it comes. So maybe that's something in the future, Paul. That opportunity might come at some stage down the road, and if it does, we'll cross that bridge when we come for it. But for now, I'm really happy with the local politics. I love doing what I'm doing, and I'm really looking forward to a big year with Kilkenny Camogie next year.
You're a very busy man.
Not a yo or no.
I'm very busy, yeah, and I love being busy. Everybody is different, but if I wasn't busy, if I was idle, I'd be incredibly frustrated. I have to be busy. I have to be my mind is literally constantly going with various different things, whether it be players for matches, or whether it be what roads need to be done locally or issues that are coming up. And so my mind is constantly going, and that's the way I like it. Everybody's different, but for me, that's how I thrive on that, and I love that environment and that pressure. I live for it. It's who I am.
I remember we was talking to Anne Phelan, and one of the things she said is that you have to have a very supportive family. And what we can hear, I'm speaking for you, Paul, now, is that you have a very supportive family behind you. And that's really important too, isn't it?
Oh, really important. I mean, family is, as I said to you, family, and I'd like to think I have 4 or 5 families. I've got my own family, and then my GA family, and my community family, and my Fianna Fáil family. But my own family, as in my wife and 4 kids, are just brilliant. And I would not be in a position to do anything that I'm doing if I didn't have that support and that, I suppose, I'm trying to think of the right word, but that just acceptance of who I am. And that I need this to be able to function. And what I love about family is, if you've had a good day or you had a bad day, when you come home, your family don't care. They just want to spend time with you, and that's great, and they really keep you humble. I think that's so important, especially when you're involved in sport or involved in politics. People, and I've seen it happen, people can get ahead of themselves and maybe sometimes think they're better than they are. And I just think that I'm very fortunate that my family definitely will not let me get too far ahead of myself, because there's always grass to be cut, or there's always hedges to be pruned, and
to be done or something like that.
Yeah. Look, you don't get too far. And I told a story there recently. My daughter, when I told her I was going to be taking over as Kilkenny Camogie Manager, it wasn't a case of, oh my God, that's amazing, you're brilliant, Daddy. It was, Jesus, the eyes were rolled up to heaven and said, Jesus, there must be fair stuck if you're going to be going to manage, and that's the kind of humility you need from your family, because it's said with the it's said with love, but it's their perception is what matters. So that they, as long as they're around, I won't be ever able to get notions or ahead of myself, because they'll keep my feet firmly on the ground.
You won't be saying that.
Politics, sorry, Paul.
Once you're getting the gear.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
I say to you, with politics, you have to like people, and especially with canvassing as well, and really sort of listening to people's at the doors, or people approaching you even at a GAA pitch. It's actually really liking people and really caring, as you said, about the people within your community.
Yeah, and I suppose that the most frustrating thing about being a public representative is actually when you can't achieve something for somebody. So if somebody comes to you and they want to get something done, and let's say, for example, the budget isn't there to get it done this year, or they might be outside of the criteria to qualify for maybe for a medical card or something. So different things like that I take that really personally, and I get really frustrated that I'm not able to get over the line for person A or person B. The highs in politics are massive, and there is no greater feeling in the world than when somebody comes to you and they're looking for a little bit of help. Maybe they're struggling with something, and you can point them in the right direction, or help them out, or solve their problem. It is honestly, Roisin and Paul, it's the greatest feeling out there. It's absolutely amazing, and I absolutely love it. I love when I love getting results. But the converse of that is when things don't work out, you take it really personally, and it's really, you really get emotionally invested. And I find that very hard, that when you can't get something for somebody because, as I said, they mightn't be eligible, or the criteria they mightn't meet, or the funding mightn't be there. And that's quite frustrating. So, but like, I love people, I love canvassing, I love knocking on doors, and I've genuinely never had any, abuse or negativity on the doors. People have always been courteous, always been very, very respectful to me. And I've always liked to think that I'm the same back to them in terms of respect, and giving them the time and listening to people's concerns, and then taking that away and trying to feed their issues or concerns back up at a national level. And I suppose if you look at the recent budget that just come out there during the week, and there'll be a lot of commentary on it, but an awful lot of that budget would have been informed by people like myself and councillors and the public, who are listening to people, who are hearing stories that, we are under pressure for this energy tax credit. We are under pressure that interest rates have gone through the roof, and perhaps people are under pressure. All the various different measures that are in place. So a lot of the budget is fed through from on the ground back up, and then the decisions are made then nationally on that. So I love the canvassing on that side, because you get a real sense of what's happening and what's out there by just talking to people.
And getting to know what
And
is people's core issues and what they want for their county, for Carlow and Kilkenny.
Absolutely, and I mean, I'll give an example, and this is really interesting. There's a really good friend of mine. She's a senator up in Dublin, and she told me was it 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, they went canvassing in a particular, look, I think it was Drimna in Dublin city centre, and they knocked on doors, and the full expectation based on national media would be that the two biggest issues were going to be housing and were going to be health. So they were braced for all this. They thought, right, we're going to get this, and there's going to be issues here, and all justifiably so. But the number one issue that came up on the doorsteps was actually dog poo on the streets.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the point I'm trying to make is, yes, housing is an issue. Yes, you know, there and progress has been made, but it's still an issue. But actually, when it comes down to it, people think, right, what's actually in front of my door? What is actually a problem for me? And actually, it was dog poo was one of the biggest issues in that particular village at the time. You know what I mean? So it's using that to feed back up to the central government in terms of getting extra allocations for maybe promotion or awareness campaigns around dog poo and the personal responsibility around it. And you might see around Kilkenny that a lot of the bins, there's now free bags to bin your dog poo and disposable, and all that sort of stuff would have been informed by those kind of local conversations right across the country that would have been had. And that's just one example, I would say, you know.
And the county councillor is really important, because I remember Mary Hilder and John Paul talking about was that the county councillors are so important for the TDs to come back down and hear what is happening at the grassroots. As you said, what are the local people talking about? So, as you said, feeding it up to Leinster House.
Yeah, and you see, your county councillor is generally speaking local. He's known to most people, and he's there. You know, your national TD or your parliamentarians, you know, they spend most of the time in Dublin. They're in Dáil, whereas your county councillor is usually living in the community. He's at the local GA matches. They're hearing firsthand the issues that are relevant to a particular area. So I love that part of being a local councillor, because I love talking to people, and I love trying to solve their problems and getting results. So definitely local politics is hugely rewarding and hugely enjoyable in that sense. And obviously, you know, on the national side of things as well. But for me, I love local politics because it's all about your own people. It's all about the people in your area, in your community, and how can you help your community prosper or develop or improve, and that's huge, you know.
And Chap, if we look at the whole role of a county councillor in regards, there are a lot of things that there are certain things you can do and certain things you can't do. Now I know there's a study done on local governments across Europe, and Ireland has one of the most centralised systems of, say, local government. If you were having a word in Dara O'Brien's ear, say what extra kind of powers, you know, if you could get them, would make a difference?
Yeah, well, I suppose first of all, the one of the big challenges we have in Kilkenny, we'll say, versus, we'll say, Italy, is that in Italy at local level, each municipal district or each county council, would say, in Italy, for want of, you know, just to give you an example, each electoral area in Italy, you know, they run their own justice department, they run their own schools department, they run their own environment. Whereas Kilkenny, everything is national, and then it's segregated down to each local government. So the schools at Kilkenny are run by the Department of Education. The justice system is run by An Garda Síochána. Now, we're a smaller country, I get that, but you don't have power to say, right, we take in 10 million euro in local property tax in Kilkenny. We want to put this money to X or Y or Z. Or rates-wise, we're bringing all this money. We want to go there. Because obviously a lot of that is national funding. So you don't get to make more localized decisions for your area because it's all in a national context. So like the economy in Donegal would be different to the economy in Kilkenny, but yet it's all treated the same because it's all national funding, if that makes sense. So for me, if I'd one wish, I'd like a little bit more devolution of power down to local government, that you have more funding available so that you can make more localized decisions which will help your community, as opposed to nationally and just a one size fits all across the board. Because as I said, there are huge differences between a Dublin city and each.
That would make a huge difference as regards roads, because there are certain back roads in across Kilkenny, County Kilkenny, that you wouldn't let it. You wouldn't. A horse and cart could barely get past in some instances.
And like, for example, in Kilkenny, we would get an allocation every year from government. So we might get an allocation of let's say, I think it was 14 or 15 million last year. But if we had control of our own finances and all the money was coming, like, you could say, actually, you know what, our roads actually need a little bit of extra investment. So let's put 20 million in this year. Or, you know what, our roads actually aren't as bad as other counties. Let's actually reduce to maybe 10 million and put that 5 million maybe into education or into housing or into whatever is specific to that particular area. So it's just a small thing, but just to give a little bit more power back to each local county to manage their county based on how that county is set up. Because, as I said, at the moment it's a one size fits all approach, and look, it's not the worst system in the world, but it would be far more beneficial if we could make Kilkenny decisions for Kilkenny as opposed to having to be under the national view a lot of the time,
And Chap Cleere, we cannot, we're coming up to nearly the end, but not at the end of the programme. We cannot, you're very proud, Kilkenny's a very proud GAA county, as we know, up the cats, and everybody says Kilkenny is the best hurlers in the country. But Kilkenny's also a very proud military city. We have the 3rd Infantry Battalion here over in the Barracks Street. And, and the 3rd Infantry Battalion probably are the biggest employers here in Kilkenny. What are your thoughts on the Defence Force budget for the Defence Forces?
Look, I think, first of all, I'm absolutely delighted that we have such a big battalion, the 3rd Infantry Battalion in Kilkenny, and I'm so delighted that many years ago, when there was a serious threat of it taken out of Kilkenny, that it was managed to maintain our presence in Kilkenny City. There's a huge amount of heritage and culture associated with the Defence Force in Kilkenny, and there's a long tradition and long history of brilliant service. And I know many people from around the southeast will say that have been through the system in Kilkenny, and it's, as you said, not only they're a fantastic employer, but it brings people into the city, and it gets people the experience of Kilkenny, and it gets them experience, a part of our culture and our heritage and our history. And I'm a massive believer in the Defence Force. If I had a view, I would actually try and actually make the barracks even bigger and try and even modernise them more and even get more training done. I know there's a lot done in in the Curragh and in the Glen of the Mal, etc. But I would actually love, and I have requested this up there. I'm not sure what it looks like yet, but I think if there was additional funding made available to the barracks in Kilkenny to even, I suppose, further enhance it and put better facilities there, to even get more people trained and brought through, I think it'd be huge for our city, and it'd be huge for the Defence Forces nationally. Kilkenny is definitely seen as a hub, and we need to make sure it's filled, and the more people we can get into it, the better. So I'd be a firm supporter of it. I think it's really, really important that we continue to maintain that presence, but I wouldn't be happy just maintaining it. I think we should try and expand it and make it even bigger, because it's huge for the county.
Well, I suppose as well,
this lady's ears, because my son's a member of the Defence Forces and the 3rd Infantry Battalion.
Brilliant.
That's something that could be looked at when these master plans are being devised and stuff like that. So,
absolutely,
facilities like that.
And that's what people don't realise, what could, and I'm only talking aloud here, but what you could see is, for example, there could be a land swap from the barracks in Kilkenny out to there, and you get even close. So everything is on the table, everything is open. But I suppose, look, we had an option in terms of that 17-acre site. Do we want it or do we not? And I suppose I was very firm in my view that we absolutely wanted it. It was going to cost us nothing. So why wouldn't you take it, like when it's there and when it's free, and when the people of Kilkenny are going to own this asset, so many things could happen over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. But if you have a land bank like that, you can really leverage it and use it for the betterment of the county. What that looks like, Paul, I actually genuinely don't know, and I'm glad I don't know. I don't want to know, because I want it to come from the people, and the people to decide, what, this is what we want to put here, this is what we want to do, and let it come from grassroots up.
It's like what Mark Twain said: if you're going to buy anything, buy land, because they ain't making any more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you can get it for free, you'd be a fool to go against it,
So if you were to run for the TD for national elections, the Defence Forces would be a major political campaign for you.
Yeah, the Defence Forces, and look, I'm a huge believer in education as well. So obviously defence and the military in Kilkenny and additional funding going, but also education. I'm a huge believer in education. I know there's been a lot of money put in the budget and a lot of work has been done on the education side of things. I'm involved in Kilkenny Carlow ETB, and we've got, a new secondary school coming there over the next couple of years in Kilkenny, down on the Callan Road. There is going to be huge. New Gael Colossia for those that want to be taught through the medium of Irish. So I think definitely greater infrastructure and funding for education, because I think if you have an educated population, then they have the minds to decide what's best for the next generation again. And if you want to be a doctor, then go ahead and be a doctor. There's just not really getting your way. So we need to make sure that with this new SETU campus and the new further education and training campuses that are coming to Kilkenny, that we need to make sure that our people from the southeast will say that if you want to go to college locally, you can. You don't have to. You can still go to Dublin. You can still go to Galway. There's no issue with that at all. But that the courses should be there locally. That if to allow you and give you that access to education. So I mean, the defence absolutely education would be huge, and obviously industry would be something I'm very passionate about as well. Just to make sure that Kilkenny is getting its fair share of industry, and it's brilliant to see the likes of Abbott coming into Kilkenny here now with a massive site. State Street of huge investment, Bank of Ireland, Bank in 365. So we're very fortunate in Kilkenny with some of the big employers we have. But I'd love to see even more blue chip companies coming on board, to create even more employment for Kilkenny. I think it's never a bad thing to have that. So there'd be three things really off the top of my head that I'd be very, very driven by.
And what about small local businesses on the high street?
Yeah, with small local businesses are the heartbeat of. I spoke about community earlier on. You go down to Graignamanagh, where I'm from, or into any town or village, and the small local business is the heartbeat of that community. And whether it be your local butcher or your local florist, they all need to be supported, because when something is happening in a town or village or as a community group, they'll go to those local businesses looking for sponsorship for X or Y or Z. So it's more important than ever that we go and do our business there with them, and we shop locally. And I'll give you an example. In Graignamanagh, we have a great sports shop there, Barron Sports. I need to do all the Tommy Bow shoe. I don't think I've bought a pair of shoes anywhere, only in Barron's over the last 5 years. And it's fantastic quality. So, it's really important that you shop locally as well, because not only they're providing employment, but they're keeping the heart and soul going in these communities as well,
And the local economy.
Absolutely.
And just a quick point on Graignamanagh, that hub that in Graignamanagh, it's been a phenomenal success, and you were talking about small businesses. It's been a great boost to the local economy in Graignamanagh, and
it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing, Paul. And it wasn't designed or set up to be a camper van hub in its original thought, but to see it evolve over time and to develop into what it's developed, it's absolutely amazing. And I think there was a survey done recently that brings in, I think it brought in over €1 million to the local economy. That one piece of business brought in over €1 million to the local economy, and everywhere is benefiting. The local supermarkets, the local pubs, the local restaurants, everywhere is benefiting, because you're getting 70 or 80 camper vans in every weekend on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're spending the money locally. They absolutely love it. The location is brilliant. You're beside the river. And Graignamanagh has done a brilliant job in promoting Graignamanagh. It's a beautiful place anyway. I'll say that, I'm biased. But it's fantastic that it has got such a good name, and so much so that if you wanted to book a weekend next year in August, there's a fair chance that weekend might not be available because it books up so quickly, so that's been a huge asset for the town. It's been absolutely massive. And as I said to you, if you're in the camper van community, people travel from all over the country and even further afield again to Graignamanagh, and the feedback is always incredible.
It's probably the best. It's probably the best inland camper van site in Ireland at the moment, chap, because you find with any of those camper vans, it's all around the coast, and then once you go inland, the quality decreases.
And what's unique about it is that it's so close to the town centre. So in a lot of places, you go down to Doolin in Clare, for example, and you'll see the campsite down at the Doolin Ferry Pier, and it's lovely. But it's away from the town. You're away from everything. In Graignamanagh, you're right actually in the heart of the town, which is absolutely massive. So you'd say it's probably the best campsite in Ireland. I go as far as it's one of the best campsites in the world, Paul. But I am biased. I will give you that. I am a little bit biased being from there, but it's fantastic. It's been brilliant for the town, you know.
And two, it's not just creating a local economy; it's also creating local jobs, and for families, local people, students, lone parents. So it's really, and local tourism as well.
Absolutely, and it brings a great atmosphere to the town. There's a great vibe around the town, and you know, you're walking down the street on a Saturday, and you know there could be 4 or 5 complete strangers walking up, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, am I doing my job as a politician? How do I not know these people?" And then you kind of realize, actually, you know what? They're actually probably just down for the weekend, you know. So it really does bring extra energy and extra enthusiasm and verve into the area, and especially in the summer, like the excitement is just brilliant, and it has been a tremendous success, and it's got lots of recognition, both nationally, locally, and nationally, and it continues to grow from strength to strength, and long may it continue.
Well, we're coming up to the last couple of minutes of the programme. Who has given you, so if you had 3 really good pieces of advice given to you politically, what were they, and who gave them to you?
Well, my grandmother said to me when I was a young lad, she gave me a great bit of advice, and she said, in your life, if you can be 3 things, if you stick to these three things, you won't go far wrong. And the first thing she said to me was to be ambitious. So in whatever you do in your life, you should be ambitious and try and drive on to be the best that you can be. And whatever it is you're doing, whether it be sport, whether it be politics, whether it be your professional life, business, family, whatever it is, have an ambition and constantly test that ambition to get better and better and better at whatever you're doing. So that was the first thing he said to me. The next thing he said to me was to be kind, which I think is really, really forgotten about a lot of times, because, you know, you don't know what anybody's going through on any given day. People have different things going on, and, you know, it doesn't cost anything to say hello or to say thank you or to ask somebody how their day has been. So for me, that's been brilliant advice, and I've always tried to carry that through with me in terms of being kind and not to prejudge, just, you know, to be nice to people, be kind. And the final thing she said, and I've absolutely tried to take this as best I can, is to be humble, humility. So in whatever you achieve, again, I'm talking professional, sporting, educational, whatever it is, always stay humble. Always remember where you come from. Always remember, you know, sacrifices other people made to allow you to get to that position. You know, so you always think of what your parents did to allow you to get on and get an education, etc. So those were the 3 bits of advice from the same person. But those three words I've always has been ringing in my ear all my life, is to be ambitious, to be kind, and to be humble. And if you attach those 3 to anything you're doing, I don't think you can go too far wrong, you know.
They're very strong values, and listening to you, you have really strong family values, community values, and really, really strong core values that we really need within our politics and our community and in business now more than ever.
Yeah, no, like I said to you, and look, you won't always get it right. You know, you'll make mistakes, and that's where the humility comes in. That sometimes you have to put your hand up and say, you know what, I got this wrong. I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. And, you know, can we move on? You know, because you know, everyone will tell you about the great day they had and all the great things they did, but sometimes things don't go so well, or you do make mistakes, or things go wrong, or the exam doesn't go as well as you had hoped, or, you know, you missed a free in the last minute and you lose the match. That happens. But I'm a firm believer in the in those 3 things, that whatever you're doing in life, if you can keep those 3 things in the back of your mind, I genuinely don't believe you can go too far wrong.
And you can't go far wrong with great words of wisdom from your grandmother either.
No, they're never too far wrong either. She's a great woman for the spuds as well. So yeah, look, we're not too bad. We're not too bad.
Well, Paul, we're coming up to the top of the hour. Paul, any more questions or anything for Chap Cleere? Or Chap Cleere, any message you would like to get out there to the viewers and your voters here in Kilkenny?
No, just look, as I said to you, I know it's a challenging time we're coming into for a lot of families at Christmas time. There's a lot of extra expenses there. But look, I suppose my message is simple, in particular, that if you ever need anything, you know, ask for help. It doesn't have to be a councillor or a politician. It could be just a family friend. It could be just a neighbour. But look out for each other, you know, especially when getting into the winter. You could have elderly neighbours that are living on their own. You know, if you have a free evening or a free few minutes, just call down, say hello. Might not mean much to you, but to that person, it could be the only interaction they've had all day. So just be kind, look out for each other, be good to each other, and yeah, hopefully we'll the brighter days will be coming early next year, and we'll get back into the summer spirit. But I just really feel this time of year, you know, with the evenings getting darker and the weather not being as nice, that, you know, it's extra important that you make that extra effort to look out for your family and your friends and your neighbours, and just, you know, just a phone call or a hello can mean so much to somebody, and it doesn't cost anything, you know.
Yeah. Well, Chap Cleere, Fianna Fáil County Councillor for Kilkenny, thank you so much for taking the time to come speak to Paul and myself here on the Irish Political Roundup. It's been absolutely pleasure getting to know you, and getting to hear what your core values and political families values are, and your family values and your community values are, because that's all anybody wants to be, is live to your pure values, and that's integrity. And that's what we're hearing here tonight. I'm sure, Paul, you would agree with me there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we bobbed and weaved a bit. We went from GAA to the budget to Camogie and back, and back again to local roads and everything. But no, thanks a million for taking the time to talk to us, Chap. It was a very, very interesting conversation, and we wish you every best wish into the future.
Brilliant.
And
hopefully you bring home the
Chap Cleere. Maybe, Chap Cleere, you know what? If you get elected as a TD, you just might become Minister of Defence, and you just might make the Defence Forces, put all the budget in the Defence Forces, and really make our 3rd Battalion so proud of you.
Brilliant. No, we'll do our best. Look, we'll take it one step at a time. We'll try and get through the Christmas. We'll really looking forward to the Camogie next year as well, that chapter.
Yeah.
And look, politically, we'll see what happens in the future. But thanks very much, lads. Really lovely talking to you. Thanks a million.
We'll be following Kilkenny Camogie. This dairy one will be following Kilkenny Camogie now. Chap Cleere, thank you so much indeed.
Thanks, Roisin. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Roisin.